On your radical, so being it's coming up on 10 years, I got to get this done. Because it was invented right there. So this lie that you read through the Wikipedia page that the Million Mass March somehow flips back to the Scientology protest of Anonymous in 2008 has zero to do with the Million Mass March. 0.0. Zero. So were the members of Anonymous Okay, stay with me. I'm going to tell you the facts of how the Million Mass March, which evolved into Black Lives Matter, which has nothing to do with what Black Lives Matter. I mean, it's actually completely the opposite, which I think it's ironic because it was invented on Weber State University, and here's Damian Lillard, who was playing here at the same time when it was invented at this university, talking like clueless, rhymeless. It was the opposite of billionaire basketball players. The opposite. So it was fundamentally... I was working on the Post-Ignorance Project in New York on social inequality, environmental toxic poisoning, leading up to the 100th anniversary. It's called the Post-Ignorance Project, which 10-10-10, click, right there is when I registered the domains and everything right there on the Post-Ignorance Project. So my YouTube site, 2 weeks before the shirtwaist fire on the 100th anniversary, that's March 25th, 2011. Fukushima, and I'm the anti-nuclear activist, always have been. Social, my activism, my ties go way deep back with Anonymous. So, I went crazy. Everybody's like, because I was involved with the group that was leading up to what turned into Occupy, which I was doing my gig in Washington Square. I wanted it to happen in Washington Square because that's where Stonewall happened. That's where, Hamilton did his work, all my work. So it was leading up. They're like, you've gone. I said, no. So my movement, which is called the Post-Ignorance Project. So it was all fundamentally based on the meltdowns of Fukushima, Japan. The top of the heap. So I'm getting ready to lead my movement. I'm in New York. I'm back and forth. John Anthony FAIRHURST in Boston comes to me. Just an email. I didn't know him from Adam. And I'm like, he says, Kevin, we want to do ours also. Let's bleed them together. This is in 2012 we started talking. I'm in the bone marrow transplant done. I have the whole field. Because I have leukemia and Fukushima. So, the whole police brutality is breaking loose. And then in January of 2012, I'm in the bone marrow transplant center. St. Onofre has its accident. I'm in, and then right here down the street, Matthew Stewart. Yeah, same family name. The no-knock warrant, the shootout happens where the cop gets killed. He ends up hung in the jail cell. That whole dynamic. And then later on that year, Danielle Willard was shot in the face in broad daylight. A young woman. And so I'm going crazy. John Anthony's doing his crazy. It's, fundamentally police brutality is such a big piece of it. So I'll tag a really, DC Media Group wrote a really good piece about us and the foundation of it. So the 50th anniversary of Dr. King's gig was coming up. The Million Man March. So that's when John Anthony come up, well, why don't we, do it in the, because I'm talking about the march, we know our past, we know our history, both of us, and, I'm white, he's black, I'm like, at first I was like, I don't know, I want to do it Washington Square, blah, 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 or DC. I always wanted to do it in DC. So let's call it the Million Mass Man March. Okay, I don't know. I don't like the name. But then we started talking back and forth, organizing it online. Then, of course, Wiki Poets got involved, and their group of anarchists, which she actually, I think, owns the domain. And she's in D.C. But John and I are working. So it has zero to do with the protests on the Scientology. Zero. The people that were at the Scientology, they have the anonymous. That's an abstract, different gig. They are not the Million Mass March. I'm here to tell you, they're not. You can take that. Sorry, but they're not. That's a different gig. So, I'm calling it the Post-Ignorance Project. We come up with these words, we agree. So, they want to do it on Remember the 5th of November because of the movie, Vendetta. You know, and I'm like, I was against it at first. Then, you know, John talked me into it because the publicity, and he did such a good job with his IT skills in those days, and so did I. My YouTube sites, so we started working together. And we organized it. You know, it was really groomed. I was doing lots of stuff in 2012 with it. I was doing, right here, Million Mass Marches in 2012. And Danielle Willard, the murder of Danielle Willard. I'm fresh out of the bone marrow transplant. You know, it's basically, it's so tiny and it's grassroots. But with YouTube and the internet, you know, Steve Grant said it so perfectly in the whenever, you know, we're a group of people that organize, and that's how it organized, through John Anthony and Kevin Blanch on my YouTube site. It was fundamentally, foundation was based on the Fukushima disaster. That was the beginning. So I flew to DC. John Anthony's cousins picked me up at the Baltimore airport, which I think is perfect. And so anyway, the whole thing evolved. The inaugural speech, the march, and I think it's important because what's going on right now in that CIA whole fucking dog and pony fucking Proud Boys CIA, we're the opposite of that. We were really grassroots. And the cops were ready for us, you know, and it organically spread. We decided to meet at the Washington Memorial that morning at 9. I slept on a park bench, you know, had a massive fucking turnout. And so I had talked to Sands himself, the Sands that's all over in the media. I had talked to him. Me and John Anthony were being interviewed in front of the White House the night before that. Michael Pendleton, by the way, he's got that mask right there. He's tragically died. He was killed in a four-wheeler accident recently. He walked from Florida, gave us a lot of publicity. Mr. Young King from CNN, Justin, he did such great work promoting us. Steve Grant promoting us. By the way, the fantastic, you know, and I've been doing a lot of work in DC for years and years and years. Sarah, one of the original, she's tragically dead. So, you know, it's on that morning. I mean, so I had talked to Sands early that morning and yesterday. People were coming up to me in plain clothes, you know, ball caps, whatever. You Kevin? Hey, Kevin, can we talk to you? They knew who I was. Yeah. You for here for the march? No, we're Capitol Security. We're White House Security. I mean, they were all over me. All over me. You know, I stayed up all night that night. I was staying at a place that kind of teed me up. It was a bad deal, but I remember walking right down what's turned into Black Lives Matter Avenue that early, 4 o'clock in the morning, which is irony. I mean, I'm walking right down that road. Stayed on the problem. First one there. A little red fox is running around. And, you know, the crowds gather. And the Wiki Poets had them stirred up. She had that big thing. And, you know, the two groups are going at it because they're having a dispute. John Anthony and her over the domain, blah, blah. You know, I'm like, shut the fuck up. Let's go. So I had a conversation early at like 5 in the morning in front of the White House, you know. Peace vigils there. I says, we're defending cancer victims. This is all about Fukushima, the meltdowns of Fukushima and the cover-up. We're defending cancer victims because it's the top of the pyramid. And White House security, Sands himself got really emotional. And, you know, they'd had a family member had recently died of leukemia. And so this is a great true story that needs to be put in the domain. So everyone's fighting. I always, you know, give this rant. We're going crazy. Everybody, there's fucking many thousands of people have showed up. And so I'm like, fuck you. Let's go. We had no permit. We had a permit to speak in the park. We had a little stage set up. So I start walking. I'm on the corner of 15th and Constitution. I says, fuck it, let's just go. Here comes a cop car. Pulls right up in front of me. Blanch, hold him off. Hold him off. We're going to get the police. I'm like, hold these fuckers off. Have you seen this crowd? Fuck, they're going crazy. I mean, fucking crazy. I've never seen energy like this. I mean, it's going nuts. I was like, oh, slow him down. When you hold him off, can you hold him off for 5 minutes, 10 minutes? I'll try. So I started dancing and doing one of my can flipping routines and going crazy. I held him off for a few, and then off we went, straight down 15th. It was so radical, so fucking intense. Onto the fence, into the park at Lafayette. I mean, it just spilled out everywhere. I gave the inaugural speech. It was crazy. It was fucking radical. They had the horses on us. They had the little tanks on us. They had the fucking security. It was fucking nuts, you know. We marched to the Capitol that day. We marched to the Fed that shut down the whole fucking city. It was nuts. I'm like, whoa, whoa. And I'm, you know, I'm full of cancer. I'm fighting for my fucking life. So anybody that tells you walk PD, and then, which it involved, and we kept it going. I mean, it was going every day. Lots of protests over killings. You know, Larry's brother had been killed in Ohio. Daniel Willard killed in Utah. What's his name that was killed in Baltimore? That's where the term Black Lives Matter came from. Was her and I put that together. You know, when they swung him along and his body like a bag of garbage and broke his neck. We went crazy over that one. You know, the Million Mass March are the original protesters at Ferguson, at Baltimore, Danielle Willard in Utah, fucking Matthew Stewart here, right here. So this is the foundation. You know, and there are plenty of interviews. RT was the only one there, and it's RT, and so that's just a fact. It was fundamentally started on the cover-up of Fukushima, the meltdowns at Fukushima. That's just a fact. So you could put your Wikipedia, which Black Lives Matter, and I think it's irony because, like, again, I walked right down, you know, the street, which is Black Lives Matters now, which is 16th, you know, from, I was supposed to be staying in a house. They teed me up. I got up 4 in the morning. I was up at the Starbucks, way up there, a couple miles up there, and I walked along the 5 Masonic temples. You know, I remember having an epiphany that night. It was intense. It's amazing because that's turned into Black Lives Matters Avenue. I'm standing with Mattia Benjamin when they announced the election on Trump, and this evolution is what got Trump out of the White House, because the whole co-op of Black Lives Matters is really quite outrageous. I think it's ironic because Damian Lillard was on this and he took on Black Lives Matter. And I know Damian, I used to do the play-by-play, you know, here for the radio station, which they pulled the plug on that. So, in the name of Fama K. Brody, in the name of Bernard DeVoto, in the name of all these great activists, you know, here, that's where it started. It started right there in the infamous and famous, and boy, it's both. Melvin Dumar's will was forged in there. Mark Hoffman did all his crazy work in there. The Salamander Letter, all them crimes there. I go on and on and on about famous and infamous. You know, the good, the bad, the ugly. The famous Stewart Library, which I think it's irony, you know, because the Stewart family is the heirs to the nuclear, you know, GE, Utah Construction merger. But that's how it started. Kevin Blanch and John Anthony Fairhurst together. We promoted it. Steve Grant got involved. Justin King got involved. Michael Pendleton walking, you know, got involved. You know, we got a lot of publicity going, and it was a powerhouse for years. I mean, and it spread like wildfire all over the world. I remember I think it was 2013 and 14, over 7 million people. It was giant, and it was good, and it was black, white, gay, straight, old, you know, it had it all. Fucking crazy ass anarchists, real ones, fucking, you know, pacifists. I mean, it had everything. I mean, it was beautiful. It's the only place ever that you could see a radical fucking militia right winger with his bulletproof vest and his fucking, you know, gun thesis with, you know, a multiple colored hair LGBT rights activists holding hands. I know radical far rights and radical far lefts that have gotten married over this, the Million Mass March. We were that beautiful and we were that good. We took on all the issues, and everybody in that crowd, you couldn't go put a camera in the dumb one's freaking face because there weren't any dumb ones. I mean, Sarah, I remember she'd go, fuck Trump, fuck Obama, you know, the whole time. I mean, we all got it. It was incredible. We had art, we had culture, we had music in it. Oh, fuck, Steve Rand's fucking rants. Are you kidding? They were so fucking good. It was a powerhouse. We slept in the churches, you know. Right there, Trump was us. We were not political. We hated them all equally for all the right reasons. Now it's been all hijacked. Black Lives Matter completely has been hijacked from what it was. It's cut its teeth here in Utah in the death of Danielle Willard, which I still say is the most heinous of them all. It was Fukushima. The cover-up of Fukushima, the first speeches. That's all. I gave the first speech. I don't have a speech. I gave the first march. You know, Nottaway. He's a right winger. He's great. That's his videos that he uploaded at George Washington University or at Howard. He might have uploaded those at Howard because, you know, it was intense and it was good for years. And you know, and then it evolves. I mean, the thing that kills me that doesn't get talked about is in 2015 with the head of RT, you know, the oligarch, you know, Putin, Toss Pravad's thing was beat to death at DuPont Circle on the 15th. And I got a tip that there was going to be violence, and I stayed in New York, and I did that that group we had in DC. Vice did a piece on it, and they were kettling us, and we knew it. I knew they were kettling. People didn't know what kettling was. I did. And I'm like, they're kettling us, so scatter like freaking. Go, you go that way, we'll go that way, go. And Vice fell for it. Vice says, oh, Previn Blanch, pretty chilly. We scattered, and then re-meet at Fox News in 45 minutes. Fucking, whoa, so good. The people that were there, I mean, amazing, left and right, and it was great. But that's what they do to us. They starve us out. They slander us. So I don't know who wrote the Wikipedia page, but it's fucking bullshit. Had nothing to do with the Scientology. It had zero. Now it had roots in Anonymous. Well, Aaron Swartz had been fucking. I was in the courtroom that day. I'd come out of the bone. Aaron Swartz. Oh yeah, big time. Big piece of it, Aaron Swartz. And you know, and that happened in January 11th, 2013. You know, which was a big piece of it. And so there was lots of grassroots myself. You know, 2011, 2012, but the actual first march happened on, remember the 5th of November 2013. I led the march. I gave the speech. That's just the way. It was fun. Well, not fundamentally, just factually. The Million Mass March was started right there in that library on my keyboard with John Anthony Fairhurst. We started it together. We merged the Post-Ignorance Project with his, you know, and it was, what a movement. I mean, wow is all I got to say is what it was. And I look back and I've done a lot of activism on a lot of fucking years. Was it a migration from Occupy? Yeah, I was due to speak at Occupy the day I got fucking sick in my guts. I was paramount in the start of Occupy. I mean, I've been working in New York for fucking several years, you know. And there's a great picture of me in Deseret News with my sign, you know, right as I'm getting ready to get on the airplane to go to speak at Zuccotti, and I got violently sick and went into a bone marrow transplant. But the fundamental foundation of the start of the Million Mass March, police brutality, big piece of it. Corruption in politics, big piece of it. All of it was the Fukushima disaster, because nothing else matters, which Black Lives Matter is completely hijacked. Just like the Proud Boys completely hijacked. You know, we were grassroots, we were good. So that's just the facts, and it needed to go up. And it's just the way it is. You don't like it, I really don't give a fuck. The truth's a motherfucker. Facts are facts. Stand tuned.